Welcome everyone to XpoNorth Digital Short. I am here with an incredibly special guest today. A little nervous because she has quite a cool title. We have Charlotte here, who's the Chief Executive of an organization I'm a huge fan of, Highlands and Islands Enterprise. Charlotte, hi, thanks for joining us.
Hello, it's a real pleasure to be with you. So thanks very much for inviting me.
So from our partial lockdown to your partial lockdown, I'm so glad we can still have this conversation. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So I'm Charlotte and I am, as you say, Chief Executive of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, which I have to say is just a fantastic job. For those that don't know Highlands and Islands Enterprise, we're an agency of government, so we get most of our money from government. And we have just a wide range of powers that we can use to support both business and social and community enterprises across the whole of the Highlands and Islands. That's an enormous area. It's actually over half of Scotland's landmass and takes you from the most northerly part of Scotland in the Shetland Isles down to the tip of Argyll. So it's a huge and diverse place, over 100 inhabited islands, the city of Inverness, lots of small towns, mountains, lochs, seas, you name it, we've got it all. It is the best bit of Scotland. And really, I am just so honoured to have the job of leading the organisation Highlands and Islands Enterprise, because it is a brilliant place to work.
So I have to ask a very basic question first, because in all honesty, I live in Southwest Scotland and I'm so jealous. We don't have an organization like Highlands and Islands Enterprise. You guys cover not only a huge range of areas, as you said, but a huge range of disciplines. You do so much good. Can I ask, what does a chief executive do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, lots of people ask me, what do you actually do? And my job, I suppose, brings together the good bits and sometimes the challenging bits of running such a diverse organisation. I mean, basically, we've got a brilliant team. So because it is such a dispersed area, we have our team is scattered throughout the Highlands and Islands. So we've got people in every and basically they have a lot of control and autonomy themselves to do what's right for their bit of the economy. So if you're in the Outer Hebrides, they can make the choices about what is right for the economy and the communities there. So I suppose my job is about setting that strategy along with my colleagues on the board of Highlands and Islands Enterprise. Some of that comes from government, but some of it is also bottom up about what we see as the opportunities and the challenges for the Highlands and Islands. I'm what's known as the accountable officer. So that means I have a serious bit of my job and I am called to account by the Scottish Parliament for what we've done and how we've done it, how we've spent our money. But actually, I always feel I'm more than called to account by the people, the businesses and the communities that we work with in the Highlands and Islands. And engaging with them is actually a big part of my job. So listening to people, hearing what the challenges are at the moment, because it does feel like it's a challenging time just now, but also about spotting the opportunities and directing our resources to where they can make the biggest impact. So I suppose it's like conducting a really great orchestra.
That is great. A very Stephen Jobs kind of attitude towards work. So can I ask I really want to get into how one becomes the chief executive of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, but first you mentioned opportunities and challenges. Across the board, I know Highlands and Islands covers a huge amount of diverse businesses. Maybe we can look at the moment, a very hard hit area, which is the creative industries. In that particular area, when things are held to account, what are some opportunities and challenges that you see that are coming up?
Yeah, and I do recognise what a difficult time. I think it's hard to have this conversation without, recognising the context that we're operating in of the global pandemic, as well as Brexit pretty much around the corner for us as well. So in terms of an environment to operate in, I've never known a time like this. But all kinds of difficult times do bring opportunities as well as challenges. And I'm a really big believer in that. The creative sector, I think, has been, well, I'm sure you've had loads of conversations about this. It has been really hard hit. And I think, unfortunately, perhaps has not had the coverage of some of the other sectors who are equally hard hit and important to us in the Highlands and Islands, like tourism, like food and drink. But I think that actually goes to one of the opportunities around this sector in particular, is actually that it has the ability through its networks to get involved in so much more than what somebody from outside might simply think is the creative sector. So we've seen such great examples of people being involved in developing responses to the PPE crisis, for example. And actually that I'm a great believer that actually adversity is a great trigger for creativity in itself. So I'm sure out there that all of the makers are actually feeding off some of these things at the moment, and I'm sure there's some great work being done. I think it's such a shame that we're seeing little opportunity for content creation to actually make it into broadcast media, particularly at the moment. On the opportunity side, though, there must be such a gap because the mainstream content creation isn't happening. We've got great opportunities, I think, in the Highlands and Islands around things like particularly the Gaelic media, creating that content for direct to consumer or business to business. So I think there are huge opportunities around some of that.
And really, Highlands and Islands is, for me, completely rose to the challenge of some of those areas that you've talked about through XpoNorth, and doing exactly what you were talking about, those real challenging areas of trying to get all that content to broadcast is something I know XpoNorth is particularly working on. Can you tell those folks who don't know a little bit about what XpoNorth is and its relationship to HIE?
Yeah, so XpoNorth is, I mean, the Scotland's premier showcase for the creative industries, and much wider than that, again, because so many other interests have come to it. Normally that's a 2-day event based in and around the city of Inverness, and I love it when it's on because it just brings such a buzz. But the team, and it's been led and supported by HIE over a number of years, the team took the early decision this year to put everything online. And I have to say, I have used this example so many times of how to adapt in these difficult times. And as a consequence, XpoNorth, with the international reach it has, the use of international experts, the panels, the discussions, the networking could all still happen, but absolutely online. And I understand, well, numbers are still going up, but we've reached 3 times as many as we would normally through the physical event. So the feedback I have had is everybody's excited about, well, how we do more of this next year, how we use digital technology actually to take advantage of great locations around the Highlands and Islands. So we might feel we're sitting in Glenurquhart Castle on the shores of Loch Ness at one minute, and then perhaps we're in Callanish Standing Stones at the next moment. So in itself, using that medium will allow us to showcase what we can do in this sector. So I just think it's been one of the best examples of how to adapt.
Yeah, I agree. So Charlotte, may I ask too, because you have to have a knowledge of so many different areas and it's such an overview. As you said, you're conducting an orchestra. How did you find your way career-wise to doing that for folks who are listening, being like, what an amazing job?
So yeah, I'll give you the short version, and many of your listeners might have tuned in and recognise that my accent isn't really Scottish. So I am from the north of England, and my career started in the health service in the north of England, which I loved and could have seen that as being my life. But I started a project with some colleagues, including somebody who is now my husband, to develop an art studio for people with mental health problems. So that was from the health service, from my point of view. My husband is a visual artist at that time, working in arts development for a local authority. So that was a brilliant project. But we got together as a consequence of that. And for some reason thought, let's leave all of this behind and go to the Highlands and Islands. And we went to Fort William thinking that might be something interesting to do. My husband's a mountaineer, so I think he probably had an ulterior motive around the mountains. which was a bit of a leap of faith. Fortune favours the brave, I always say. And we had a plan to start up a business, which we have done. And we're lucky in finding a great place to start that business, which is my husband's studio and gallery and a hotel. And we've developed it quite a lot since then. But I quite soon realised that working with your husband, I'm not sure.
As its challenges.
So again, I think I was lucky because an opportunity came up at Highlands and Islands Enterprise in Loch Harbour in Fort William, and I joined the organisation. This is 23 years ago, so I've been through a number of roles. I did spend a lot of time in Fort William and Loch Harbour, which is still my home, and I absolutely love it. But as I went through different roles, I got to know even more of the Highlands and Islands. So, what a fantastic job, including the job before this one, where I was Director of Business and Sector Development. And that's when I took on over responsibility for all of our business sectors, including the creative sector. So got to know a lot more about this. So I guess I've learned on the job, really, that I've learned about the region and I've learned about all of the business and other opportunities across the Highlands and Islands till I was fortunate enough to become Chief Executive, which I say is such an exciting, varied and important job for the economy of the Highlands and Islands. But it's all about collaboration, and nothing that we can achieve is not without the effort of all of our partners working together. That's a really important part of how we work.
I think that's really wonderful. I really love that you started your own business, that you came here because of a kind of a bit of a calling, that you really connected with the area. I think you're the perfect person to be having the job that you do. And one other thing before we move on, because we are running out of time, is that one very unique thing about the Highlands and Islands, and I know XpoNorth really embraces this, is actually the global impact that your region in particular has to the world. A lot of the audience that XpoNorth is getting, or kind of the world is watching the Highlands and Islands, to seeing how fast they responded to putting things online. In your mind, as you're coming up with initiatives and helping, how much of a global perspective comes in?
Yeah, well, at a time like this, you can end up becoming a bit inward looking because you're so focused on what's in front of you. Therefore, it's absolutely important that you look around you and learn from elsewhere. And you're right, we've got great international links. There's lots of things we've done with Arctic and Nordic partners, for example, where we share some similarities in terms of challenges. Other parts of Europe, we've done loads of joint projects with, and we've had a long-term relationship with MIT in Boston because we wanted to learn from the best in terms of entrepreneurship. So we like to see ourselves as being outward looking because we can learn from others. But what we have found is so many countries have come to us and said, we're really interested in the way you as a government agency work and the integration of working with businesses and communities as part of your approach to economic development, and that we've got this broad reach across the whole of the patch, but also into all sectors, which means you spot those opportunities about where things can work together.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So what are your, to maybe end on a bit of a lighter note, because I know we're in the middle of COVID mania. A lot of people are suffering and having huge challenges, especially in the arts, about how they're building up their business. Anyone who's performance-based is having a really hard time understanding how they're transitioning to that. Do they just hold their breath and wait? What are some of your predictions or hopes about how we move through this time and where we're going to get to? Do you have any hope of glimmers to give us?
Well, there are good things that we can hang on to through what we've been going through. And one is about how community sentiment is just now, that people are looking for a greener way of working and living, that they're more concerned about well-being and they're more concerned about each other. So there's a strong sense of that community wellness, which I think is really important. And in terms of the opportunity, I mean, here's something that actually, this is for the creative sector, is we need to be reimagining what reality looks like. So what's the future going to be? And it's never been so difficult to predict. So that's where we need people with that left field vision, with those ideas to actually come to the fore. And it's not just within the sector itself, it's in those other hard pressed areas like retail, like tourism. It's all going to look different. And I think we need to start to create the vision of what that can be and how it works for our communities, our businesses and entrepreneurs in the kind of spirit that we all see as important at the moment, where we value a lot of other things as well as our income, that we're valuing our health, we're valuing working with our communities, we're valuing our families, we're valuing our green spaces. We've got all of that in absolutely spade loads in the Highlands and Islands. So you can all come and work here, work remotely and contribute fantastically to this brilliant region.
I love that. If I could stand up and applaud and that were appropriate, I'd do that. I think that's a really wonderful rallying cry. I think it's forward thinking, future looking and optimistic and true about the resources that exist in the Highlands and Islands. And it's a future that I'd like to be in. And it kind of embraces your bit of advice that fortune favors the brave. Speaking of, at the end, we always end with a little bit of advice. So something that you've been told that really has meant something to you, or something that you've learned along the way that's helpful.
Okay, I think this is a sort of career orientated one, but you can take it into any context, which is, don't wait to take responsibility or authority, just step up and do it.
Love that. Love it. Just do it. Charlotte, thank you so much. I know how busy you are. It's a real treat to be able to chat with you and hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining XpoNorth Digital Shorts.
That's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.